As developers, there are so many different terms and concepts that we need to learn. And it's not as though we can just learn these things one time. The landscape is always changing, so we always have to stay on top of new technologies that come out. How can we handle constantly learning so many new things and keeping up with technology without going crazy? One method that helps is spaced repetition learning. This video will cover what is spaced repetition learning and also go over some of the tools and methods that you can use to get started with it right now. Hi everyone, I'm Gwen and this is Faraday Academy, where we talk about all things to do with modern software development. Now, if you have read my articles in the past or watched my videos or perhaps read my book, then you know how much I've talked about spaced repetition learning and how it has helped me over the last 6 years, especially leading up to my first development job that I got back in 2015. Actually, at first, I was really overwhelmed with the number of things that I had to learn in software development, all the different OOP and functional and language-specific topics and concepts. It was really difficult and overwhelming. So what I started to do was make flashcards and practice these topics. So I would just tell myself, I'm just going to go through 20 cards every day, at least 20, and learn concepts like this. Of course, using flashcards has many inefficiencies. For example, you learn some of the concepts more quickly than others, and then you keep collecting more and more cards over time, and how do you know which ones to study at which time? That's why I switched to spaced repetition learning. So what is spaced repetition learning? It is a learning system where you review decks of flashcards, ideally every day. You do at least a certain number, 10 or 20 or 30 of these cards. And for each one, you self-select if you got the card right or wrong. When you saw the question, did you know the answer? Based off of whether you select right or wrong, or whatever the options are that the program you're using gives you, easy or difficult or whatever, the spaced repetition learning algorithm will show you that card more or less often. For example, if you get the card wrong, it will give you that same card again the next day. If you get the card right, it might wait 3 days to show you that card again. If you get it right again, then it might wait a week to show it to you again. If you get it right again, it might wait a month to show it to you again. If you're continuously struggling with it, you might be seeing it every day for a while. This really helps you to remember concepts by helping you to review them at just the right time before you are going to forget that concept and have to relearn it again. There has been quite a bit of research done on spaced repetition learning systems and how they can help you both as a student and as a professional in industry. And I will link some of that information in the description below if you want to read more about it. Now I want to talk about some of the tools you can use as spaced repetition solutions that you can start to use right away. So the first one is Anki, which has been around for many, many years and is used for a lot of different things, not just software developers, of course, for language learners and music professionals, students learning math and science and all different sorts of things, but it's also really useful for learning about programming and technologies. I want to point out that the Anki system here is just a version of spaced repetition learning with a series of apps with a built-in web interface to sync all of your cards across devices, and it also has a browser interface for you. But there is also another, or group I guess, called AnkiApp, which is confusingly named the same thing as Anki, and I was trying to figure out where this one comes from, and it seems to be just a cheap knockoff where they tried to use the Anki name. And you can see they try to make it as confusing as possible because they don't use any type of logo here that makes it obvious that this is a different app. So with the original Anki, you can see there's a star logo and their colors are everywhere. But in this app, it just looks kind of like a generic app. They also have a web service here called AnkiApp Web, which is also confusing because their site here is AnkiApp.com, and then they have their AnkiApp Web, while the original Anki is AnkiWeb.net, and then apps.ankiweb.net. So it is kind of confusing to use the two of them. I was originally comparing these two apps, and then I started to read blog posts and people talking about how this is a knockoff and using Anki branding and the Anki name without their permission. And even though the Anki app does have an okay interface, like the interface is comparable to the original Anki, it still doesn't have nearly as many features or nearly as much extensibility or community support as the original Anki app. So just make sure when you're looking for Anki that you are downloading and using the correct app. If you look on the page, you can see all the different downloads across all devices, including Linux support, which I think the other Anki app doesn't have. There is also a vast system of plugins for the original Anki that this knockoff Anki app doesn't have. And the last one is this one called Mem.dev. This is a newer solution, and what is different about Mem.dev is that it is made just for developers, and they have a lot of extra features to help you study and learn code and software development technologies. Now, I am not sponsored by any of these products. I have been using Anki Web for a long time. I honestly haven't been using it as much in the last year or so, but I have recently cleared out all of my decks of cards, and I'm starting fresh with studying some blockchain and computer science and different topics like that now. So let me start here. You can read a little bit about Anki at apps.ankiweb.net. You can read about what they offer, and you can also see that they have apps for all the major platforms for mobile phones, iPhone and Android, Linux, Mac, and Windows. And you can sync them with each other so you can study your cards on any device. Now to sync them, you can come here to Docs and go to Syncing with Anki Web, and you can see the steps that you can use to sync your cards between all of the apps. It basically recommends that you sign up for a free account with Anki Web, and that will sync your cards for you. Like it says, Anki Web is a free companion to the computer version of Anki, and you can use Anki Web online, and you can also use it to sync your cards across devices. So what does this look like? This is basically what the local version of the app will look like. The interface isn't very impressive, but it is a free application and it does work well once you get the hang of how to enter cards. You can basically create decks, and your decks will be listed here. You can create a new deck. I'll just call this Python. Now I have this Python deck. I can click on it. I can select options or start to study. And it seems like they should have a button down here to add cards, but instead, whatever deck you're in, you can add cards through this add button on top. Select the type of card you want to add. You can use some of these card templates, or you can create your own. And you basically just type in the text on the front of the card here, like your question, what is Python? And then you put the answer on the back of the card. A computer, I guess, programming language. You can add tags to the cards so you can search for them later. And then when you're ready with it, you can press add. Now it brings you to the next card. You can choose a different type for this card. If you want to actually type in the answer, you can add fields to the card and do a lot of different things with these cards. It does take a little while to get used to this interface, but once you get used to it, it has pretty much all of the features you would want, including adding attachments or recording audio to add that to the card if you want audio cards. Now if I hit close, that takes me back to the deck page, or I can see all of my decks again and go into an individual deck. Then you can also see your stats, how often you've been studying, see which decks you've studied, how many cards, etc. And then here is where you would sync it with your Anki Web account. I'm just going to go into Study Now real quick. And so now I'm asked the question, what is Python? Of course, there's no field or anything I have to type in for a basic question and answer. So I can just answer on my own and then click Show Answer. And now I can self-select, was it easy to answer? Then it will wait 4 days to show me the card again. Was it okay? It's going to show me again in 10 minutes. And if I need this again right away, I can click again and it shows me that question again. So now I can click Show Answer and now I can click Easy and it says I've finished studying this deck for now. So that is Anki and Anki Web. If you're looking for more information about how you can become an Anki super user or use it in a variety of different ways, their Reddit forum is an excellent place to go for information. They have a lot of great topics here and questions and discussions, and they also have their wiki where you can learn more information about Anki, and it also takes you to their FAQ with lots of obviously frequently asked questions. And especially as developers using the original Anki here, it's written in Python and it's easily extensible, so we can write our own scripts to extend this app and do whatever we want with it. Now let's talk about Mem.dev. So if you go to Mem.dev, their website, they have this interactive demo where you can try out their system of building flashcards. This is a React example where they basically give you everything pre-filled in and it's already highlighting the term that you want to remember. Now if I hit click to continue, when I study this card, of course this is just their demo, but when I study this card, I have to type that in. So react.component, and now I submit it. And you can see it's a really nice interface. It shows me that I've gotten the card right. So what's different about Mem.dev? Well, for one thing, it is an online experience. So you can see they don't have all the different applications for your different devices. You can use it from any web browser, so you can use it from your mobile browser. But as far as creating cards, it's best done from your desktop. So the idea is that when you're coding and as a software developer, you spend a lot of time on your computer. You don't really code on your phone for the majority of people, pretty much all coders, right? We use laptops and computers. So what it does is instead of just having a desktop app where you enter all the cards manually, it gives you browser extensions. Like you can see I'm on Firefox now, or you can use the browser extension for Chrome. They have extensions for VS Code and Vim, which is awesome. Terminal application, and then you can use their Sublime extension as well. When I demo this in a second, I'm going to get into how to use their browser extension. And then if you scroll down, you can see it's a 30-day free trial. It's kind of small text. Let me zoom in. So there's a 30-day free trial, and you don't need to enter a credit card to sign up, but it will be $10 a month after that. If you read the About section on the website, you can see how he talks about that if you pay for a tool, a premium tool, then you're more likely to use it and to learn from it. So that is the idea, that you're investing money and you're also getting a return in this really nice, beautiful web interface. And because you're paying money, you're going to want to study more often. There's more incentive there. So if I click sign up now, you can see it will let me sign up just regularly with email and password, or you can connect it to your GitHub. So I just signed up for a test account. You can see I have 30 days remaining on this free trial. You can see this is specifically made for a learning tool for developers. He actually sends out an email newsletter, or he calls it a magazine, I guess, with different resources and tools to help you with your learning. So I'm just going to click no thanks. You can watch this good introduction video on how it works, and I'm going to skip this step, and then he prompts you to install extensions for it. I'm going to skip this step for now, and then I can be reminded to study my cards at whatever time of day or whichever days of the week I want to study, which is a nice feature. But I'm just going to say no thank you for right now because this is just a demo account. So I'm in the interface where I can add cards here. And one of the big differences you will notice is in this drop down. So I can choose to type in plain text and choose a part of it to remember. Or what I'm probably going to be doing a lot is looking for the specific syntax that I'm using, like JavaScript or Python, typing in some code here. If I click away, I can select which part of this I want to remember. For example, I could remember to print out test. This is just an example, but I could click the plus here, and then you can see this turns blue. And so when I study this card, that is the text that I will have to remember. I can also type in some details. This card is about Python, and I've just learned how to print test. If I got this information from the study card from somewhere like Stack Overflow, I can paste in a link to the source of the information there so I can read up on it as I am studying this card, especially if I get the card wrong and I need to reinforce the concept of whatever I'm studying. So now I can click save, and you can see the card is saved. So now if I go into cards here, I can see an interface that will list all of the cards that I've created. I can click train now, start training, and then you can see it comes up with my card. So if I just type in anything there and hit submit, you can see it basically diffs. It shows me what I put in and what the correct answer is. Now, even though it knows the correct answer on Mem.dev, it still lets me self-select if this card was easy, if it's good, or if I need to give it another shot. Basically the same thing as the Anki programs did. Except it is nice to see side by side what I typed in and what the correct answer is. And maybe I just made a typo, but I really know the correct answer. So in that case, I could select easy. If I didn't know it, I could give it another go and now try to get the correct answer. Hit submit. There are a lot of hotkeys that I can use to speed up studying through these decks. Like it says, use the arrow or number keys 1, 2, 3 to rate this card. So you can see I can use the arrow keys to arrow over and select something. And now the session is complete. I can study again, but I only have one card, so it's just going to show me the same thing again. Now to make cards, I can also use something called snippets here. And for that, I'm going to use my extension. So I'm going to add this to Brave, the extension here. And now this extension is up in my top bar here. So now let me go to Stack Overflow, and I'm actually going to search for a specific question. So I'll search for just Django async, let's say Django 3 async, see what questions come up. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Okay, this one looks okay. Django 3.1 async views on Stack Overflow. Now you can see when the page loads, I have these little pop-ups that actually come from Mem.dev with their little elephant symbol. And so if I click on one of these, I can click on one of these from the answers or even from any of the code snippets in the question. So I'm just going to click on this one. And oh right, I just got the Mem.dev extension in Brave. So what I'm going to have to do is go to my Mem.dev app, click on extensions, and here you can see it says, once you've installed the extension, use this code to authenticate. Forthrighty travesty bug. Oh, I can just click copy and then go here, paste that, click sign in, and now you can see that the code from the answer is copied into this box. I can have a title of what I'm learning, what category, which is Python, and a link back to the question where I got the code from. I'm going to click create. Success, your new snippet has been created. So I can keep surfing through more questions and answers and just save snippets as I go. But now that I have snippets saved, I have to convert them to flashcards. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into Mem.dev and do that. So here I can select what I want to remember. So here it's going to be async, and I also want to remember await, so I want to type in both of those terms. Everything else is pre-filled for me because I created a snippet from it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and that will turn it into a card. It takes me to the train page, so I'm going to start training. And now you can see I can type that in. And for some reason I thought it would let me have a second keyword to type in here and match up, but I guess it didn't. So I'm just going to say good for that card. Session is complete. If I look in cards now, I have that card as well, where I can manually review it or I can do another training. This works basically the same for any extension that you install, and you can see a little demo of how these different extensions work for VS Code or Vim or whichever one. You just have to remember to authenticate with this code here. So what are my thoughts on Mem.dev versus other spaced repetition solutions, especially since I have used Anki for years off and on now? And Mem.dev is something newer that came to my attention earlier this year. So I would say if I saw this app when I was starting out or even 2 or 3 jobs into my career, I would definitely have put all of my cards in Mem.dev because I really like the interface and I like that it's geared toward developers. And it also uses my main editors, so Vim and VS Code, and then grabbing snippets from the web and being able to add cards in a nice interface myself. So at this point in my career, I've gone back and forth to see, which Anki card app I want to use, especially since I'm trying to push to learn a lot more new things in my career at this point. Even though I've been a developer 5 years, there's still so many things for me to learn. And I'm really not a big fan of the Anki interfaces, so Anki Web and then AnkiApp. Even though they are mostly free, except for the iPhone app, I believe it's $25. And they have definitely helped me out a lot in the past. I've been testing out the Mem.dev interface off and on, and I think in the next month or 2, I'm going to subscribe to a premium account and start creating cards on their interface. Now, the only thing that I don't like about this, just for me personally, is that I can't import and export cards in formats from other places. So if I had cards made in CSV or in JSON, I couldn't import them into here, and if I wanted to export my cards, I couldn't do that either. On the other hand, I really like the very focused approach that Mem.dev takes. I know it sounds like a sales pitch for them, but I am excited about this app and I'm going to start using it for myself. And I guess I'll find out, how much do I actually miss all of the other features and extensibility that I would have if I used more of a broad spectrum type solution like Anki, where I could do whatever I want and probably spend a lot more time just customizing the cards versus using the Mem.dev interface, capture and enter exactly the information that I want to learn, and spend more of my time actually practicing the cards versus setting up my perfect card pipeline locally. I think that's something I'm really going to discover as I build out my learning systems now. Now, this is a newer project, and even since I've started using this, you can see they added the hotkeys here. They've been adding features and updating this regularly. Now, there is a podcast where the creator of Mem.dev talks about some of his design philosophies behind why he has you create every single card in the interface and why the app functions in the way it does. And I'll link that in the description below. It's a really interesting podcast episode, and he goes over a lot of different details about why developers should be using spaced repetition learning. I hope that was helpful. I'd really like to know your thoughts about spaced repetition learning. Do you have any experience using these types of systems? Or any other thoughts or comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day, everyone. Take care.